So today I'm going to be building the Binturong cliffs, or basically a Binturong habitat, but the major takeaways from today's video are Poisonblade is a dumbass who can't play on the right brightness setting and has given himself night vision with it, and also please don't compare your builds to mine. So I could start with the comparison thing, but the more fun thing is the Poisonblade is a dumbass, which, yeah, I've been playing Planet Zoo on the wrong brightness setting for the past almost 2 years, and now I know why I can see perfectly fine in the dark or at nighttime in Valheim while others are struggling to see anything, and that's because I have never checked out the brightness settings in Planet Zoo. I checked it out because I thought, like, looking at some other people's screenshot, like, oh, my shadows are always way darker than that. And then also with like the latest update with all of these settings that changed, I wanted to make sure that like everything is good now. But yeah, when it comes to brightness settings, there's usually like 3 pictures. Planet Zoo at least has this, where the leftmost picture is supposed to be only vaguely visible. Yeah, that was completely black for me. The middle one was, I wouldn't even say vaguely visible, so yeah, I've been playing Planet Zoo basically in the dark. But hey, at least now I can see perfectly fine in the dark. But you will see this in the video because like halfway through, the brightness is just going to explode at you because I'm finally playing at the brightness setting that you're supposed to play at. So there's that. But hey, again, I've now conditioned myself to see in the dark, which I don't think is a bad thing, but yeah, I probably shouldn't have been a dumbass and should have checked out the brightness settings from the very start. But for today's video, as I said, I'm building the Binturong cliffs and I'm showing you guys all of the build process for once, which I usually don't do, and I also realized why I cut out the rock work, because it's like a good 1/3 of the video. Of course it makes sense because it's Binturong cliffs. A cliffside is going to have a lot of rocks, but I tried to give myself the challenge of not copying any of my pre-existing rock work, like the rock work that I have already done, because that's what I usually do. So I still somewhat copy things, but not actually copy things. I just know what pattern when it comes to rocks works. And that's usually I don't know what number it is. It's the long flat rock and then change it in like I stack them, but I change the angle of them a little bit and it usually works out. Like that's my trick when it comes to rock work, and then it's just repeating that because it's easier. But I also don't actually copy it. I place every rock by itself, which is not what I usually do, but yeah, now I realize why I usually cut the rock work out, because it's kind of really repetitive. But for once I wanted to show you guys all of the building process, because usually, as I said, I cut this stuff out. I also make a lot of mistakes while building, or at least what I call mistakes is I build something, I absolutely despise it. As soon as I'm done with building it, I leave it for a bit, and then I rip it out and build something different. Usually I don't show that because, I mean, I'm basically building something that you guys won't see in the end result. So you guys don't see I call them mistakes, but really I just despise what I built sometimes and rip it out. But this goes on to like, please don't compare your builds to mine, because with the magic of editing, usually my builds look like they've gone from basically nothing to completely finished without any hiccups or something. Again, because I usually cut those hiccups out, but there's a lot of mistakes that usually happen. I'm very selective when it comes to what I record and what I don't record as well. Like usually any plant work or foliage work I also cut out. Also, just a quick little tip on rock work. When it comes to like the loose pebbles, which I've started using a lot, loose pebbles, it's the faux rocks that were given, I think with the aquatic DLC. I think they were part of it. I don't know for sure because whenever I get a pack, I usually get it as like early access, which usually gives me, I think, early access also to the update. So I would never am fully sure whether they are with the update or with the DLC. So if anybody can clarify if the faux rocks were with the aquatic pack or with the free update, please do so in the comments because I do not know. Yeah, place those rocks usually below the cliffside because again, well, gravity. Like the rocks are going to tumble down and stay down. So yeah. Also, I hate dead trees. That's the mistake that I made. I wanted to first of all hide, like, this is something I want to do with all of the enrichment pieces. I usually want to somewhat hide them to make it look natural. And I mean, we have been given these like faux dead trees or buildable dead trees. I absolutely despise them as soon as I'm finished with them. So this won't be in the end result. I'm building some kind of watchtowers, which I like a lot better, makes a lot more, well, doesn't make a lot more sense, but just looks a lot prettier. This is something that I would usually cut out, and again, it might give the impression of like, oh, Poisonblade builds go completely right from the get-go. No, they don't. And then there's also the thing of angling. My builds, or at least some of my builds, look perfect when viewed from a certain angle, and from that angle only. Like, there's definitely some builds that I can just whip the camera around and just show you guys a different angle, and it just doesn't work. The lighting is all the way off, the build looks a little bit out of whack, so there's angles, and then especially when it comes to thumbnails, Photoshop. Like, all of my thumbnails, or well, all of the screenshots, I usually up the brightness. Well, don't have to do that anymore because well, I don't think the brightness is upped right now, but it definitely will at like a later stage in the video. So I might not have to up the brightness anymore. Again, I'm a dumbass who can't play in the right brightness settings, it seems. When it comes to screenshots of Kayan al-Bashar, Valhalla, I usually up the brightness, I usually up the contrast just to make things pop a little bit more. And then the other thing that I usually do with screenshots is, well, kind of funny because I always have like a 30-minute internal debate, also eternal debate, but yeah, I usually have a 30-minute internal debate about the color balance. And it comes down to a really funny, or at least for me funny, like I can laugh about it, thing about Kayan al-Bashar, also about Valhalla, and that is that Kayan al-Bashar is too much red, and Valhalla is too much blue. So whenever I have a screenshot of Kayan al-Bashar that I really like, I always just think like, I should just show the real, like, you know, Kayan al-Bashar is very red. Of course it is, it's a desert build. Poison, it's supposed to be mostly in the red and brown tones. I just find that Kayan al-Bashar just looks amazing when you just put like, when it comes to the color balance, just put 10 points towards the dark blue. Not the cyan, the dark blue. So yeah, that's also something that I do when it comes to screenshots, which again makes it for like an unfair comparison. Like, there is some Photoshop happening. There's also Ansel, where I usually just, it helps me blur out the backgrounds with like giving you kind of a fake depth of field thing. But there is a little bit of Photoshop happening, and then, well, angles, and the major thing when it comes to builds, especially when it just comes to content creators and like comparing your builds to them, is that most content creators started with Planet Coaster, and the building system from Planet Coaster is exactly the same as it is in Planet Zoo. So everyone who started playing Planet Zoo and is comparing their builds to, let's say, the Lady Designer, Rudy, Silverad, Stan, like, all of these people, including me, have started with Planet Coaster, so they have years of experience on you when it comes to the building system. There's that you're just you're facing, first of all, at least for me, I do edit the screenshots that I post. Again, brightness, contrast, don't have to do the brightness anymore because I'm a dumbass. But contrast, color balance, that's all I do with screenshots. And then there's years of experience when it comes to Planet Zoo and Planet Coaster, because they basically have the same building system. So it's, even if you take one of these things out with like, going through the whole list, angling when it comes to screenshots, sometimes Photoshop, at least in my case there is some Photoshop happening, editing to make buildings look, or make it look like they go real smooth when it's usually not the case. And then there's the experience thing. So even if you take one of these things out, well, it's just going to be an unfair comparison. So please, like, I sometimes see these comments of like, oh, I could never build something like this. This looks amazing. My builds look like shit compared to this. Please don't think like that, because it's never going to be a fair comparison, because also I only show the high points. There are definitely builds that I don't show as much because I don't think they are as good, especially when it comes to the Royal Palace of Bashar. There's a lot of builds there that I want to revisit and change, especially when it comes to the, well, I can just call it out, like the Jaguar habitat. I want to rip it out because it just doesn't flow with the rest of the place. Also, there's just the, at least for me, like again, I can only speak for myself when it comes to all of these points, but when it comes to just content creation and Planet Zoo, I think this actually also goes for just most building simulator and content creation. There's always this some innate pressure to up your last build, to always try something bigger, try something better, try to wow basically with your builds. Like, if I wasn't making videos on it, I doubt that I would have built the Hagia Sophia. And I doubt that I would be retouching it as I am doing, well, somewhat right now, but it's just a huge build and it still gives me traumatic flashbacks of the time I had to try and make that dome. Yeah, building in real life seems a lot simpler than in Planet Zoo sometimes. But anyway, so there's that. So again, just please, like, I am sounding like a broken record at this point. Might also again be because of the heat and that I can't turn on my fan because you guys will go deaf, and poison is melting, so brain is also melting. But please don't compare your builds to my builds, because either way it's going to be an unfair comparison. And anyway, let's go back to the actual video for today, because I should be talking about that as well. But I basically took the, I don't know why I made this tower, or at least why I made the first tower, because I basically took a tower that I already made for Esten's build, or for Esten's llama farm, but then I burned down his farm because I wanted to give him something else, also because he was being salty about Drew getting a brewery in Valhalla. So don't be salty about the builds that I give you. It will not end well. I will put things or burn things down. There's kind of a trend today in like heat, like there's melting, there's burning things down. Yeah, also just the team of Poisonblade is a dumbass. But that's in every video, I would say. I'm always a dumbass who doesn't realize basic things most of the time. Also, should I talk about the schedule of the channel lately? Because it's been all over the place and I feel like I need to comment on it. But yeah, I tried for the past 3 weeks, or ever since I took a break, to not have a schedule and basically release videos when I feel like they are good. But then I also realized, if I don't have a schedule, I just don't sit down and build. I will find every excuse possible to not sit down and build. And it's not because I don't like Planet Zoo. I like building in Planet Zoo. I like building this fantasy world of mine. It's just, I want to be, how do you say it? I want to feel productive, but I want to be ineffectively productive. Like, effectively productive in my case would mean sitting down and playing Planet Zoo. Ineffectively productive would mean I do something else that I should do, but also shouldn't. My room has never been cleaner. I legitimately just thought, oh, I need to clean my mouse mat because, you know, a nice clean work area. So I cleaned my mouse mat. Then I went like, oh, but I can't lay my mouse mat down on my desk because, I mean, my desk is dirty. So then what's the point of cleaning my mouse mat then? So I set up everything to clean my desk. And then I cleaned my entire room. Also, beforehand, I organized my entire wardrobe because, of course, that was essential. So yeah, I need to figure out a schedule that I can't break. Like usually, well, the issue with me and scheduling is that I think I'm doing too little, so I keep giving myself more work whenever I have a schedule, until I basically burn myself out because I'm doing too much without realizing how much I'm doing. But then when I don't have a schedule, I just am ineffectively productive, as I already mentioned. Again, my room has never been cleaner, so that's a good point. But yeah, so I need to figure out a schedule that I can't add more work to, or just don't allow myself to do more work than is in the schedule. So yeah, that's basically what's been happening lately. I tried with no schedule, doesn't work, so I'm going to try with another thing, with like not an unbreakable schedule. I just have to make sure that I don't do more work than I should. But yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. If the Binturongs behave, there's going to be some cinematic footage of the end result. But I found out that the Binturongs like to float in this habitat because there are some pieces that are angled well, they are angled, and for some reason the Binturongs float. If I can make them not float, then there will be some cinematic footage. If not, then there will be a tour at some point. Anyway, hope all of you enjoyed today's video. There is the subscribe button. Brain really melty because I can't do my normal outro, it seems. But there's the subscribe button if you want to see more. There's the like button if you actually like the video. And then there's the notification button. But before that one happens, I will learn to work out a schedule. So with that being said, hope you have a wonderful day. Bye bye.